where a lot of the pressure ends up going. Maybe that's what you want to see. But again, it's going to be the mid lane bans coming in. The Annie is really the only one that I was more like, do we want to drop this? Do we want to play for it? Like, how do we want to end up, moving about this? But the Rise is necessary. I think the Galio is necessary against Doinb. I don't think you can leave them up. I think they're too scary. But on the other side of this, it's going to be a couple of junglers taken off the board and that playmaker in the Nico.
Yeah, so what do you let slip through here by this point? You let the Jace through. You let Yone Sejuani priority come across by this point. Three bans to Doinb again.
I wouldn't be in love with an AD carry first pick here. The first thing I note, especially with all the things taken off the board in game 1, Naafiri is on the board. Xin Zhao's off. Vi is off. Poppy is off. And I think a lot of people consider those to be the 3 big answers to Naafiri in the current meta. So, it's definitely something I'm going to be looking at, but it's the Misfortune as the first pick. They just want to get something stable, I guess, in the bot lane. I don't know. I don't love it, right? I think you have the opportunity to get some prio here, and I'm not sure that's it. But Sion the answer for solo kill.
I think MF is... I mean, here we go. Are we going to lock this in Fury? I think MF is a safe first pick because of what you're talking about. It just gets like safe lane prio. But the main get for Misfortune is bullet times, right? So you're looking for those later. And when you B1 Misfortune, you are daring an enemy team to pick shutdowns for bullet time. And you can already see on IP going for it. Wukong can immediately go into the Trickster, dash in, and cancel out an MF ult, even if he doesn't do it with the first bout of the Cyclone. So they don't choose the Naafiri, though, and Shadow is Shadow's happy about that.
Yeah, honestly, I would have felt better about this draft if they had just switched those picks. I think I would have been a lot more like, oh, yeah, I understand where they're coming from, but, we'll see what the answer to Sion on the top side is. Solo kill has uniquely been fantastic on Sion. That's something I really want to point out. It's been one of his more productive champions since coming in for Ninjas in Pyjamas, not even just as like a weak side tank, but as like a carry, and Yorick is going to be the answer. This is a very common top lane matchup to see right now. We've seen these two specifically, earlier today, but even throughout the past couple weeks, we've seen these two as answers to each other. I like Yorick for later in the game. I think that that's definitely a bailout pick, but we saw earlier that Sion was able to get a pretty nice lead, and that's kind of what I would expect in terms of the early 1v1. It's going to be interesting to see NIP already kind of setting up for a team fight comp. You don't really draft Wukong if you don't want some sort of 5v5 pressure, and Victor's going to play into that as well.
Also, the added fact that Doinb is now sitting here knowing that Akali Talia come off the board from Fearless, and last draft they just 5-target banned him. The pool is already getting thin. If you let 2 more mid laners drop off, even if you don't see FPX ban 2 mid laners, rough spot to be in. So I don't hate just grabbing the Victor up by this point and then trying to cut down Care's champion pool. And the Ahri's a great one. You got to look for dash pairings for Naafiri. And we're losing a lot of those good ones for Care right now already.
Yeah, and the tables have kind of been turned onto Care here because now there's 4 mid lane bans and you're the one who doesn't have the pick coming in.
Yeah.
So,
how does it feel, Care, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely not, I think, what FPX wanted to sign up for. The Ahri, the obvious one to take off the board. I personally would expect Azir to potentially be this second ban. Kind of makes the most sense with what they want to build here. And it's the thing that Care plays a lot of, and it is going to be the Azir coming in. Just in terms of how these players like to play, it makes a lot of sense. But for the other side, I'm just not really sure what you want for FPX. Like, what are you trying to opt to leave into playing? Do you want him to play Kai'Sa? Like, because that to me is kind of what you're setting up for. But I don't know if I would want that. Like, I don't know if I'm like super excited about that. You could ban out the Kai'Sa, or you could ban out something like the Braum, which obviously makes a lot of sense to stop bullet time and plays off of basically anything really well, can just be a really stable pick for the team. But again, this leaves up a couple of different options, and for a team that does want to play around team fights, like Corki is available, Kai'Sa is available.
So leave that like famous NIP 3 inhibitor down, lost Elder, like win that they had over Top Esports. They drafted 4 frontliners for Leave, and then they drafted him a Lucian. His Lucian was super disgusting. He won that thing from lane immediately. You can lock in the Lucian knowing that like you're not going to lose Enchanter prio. There's no spot where FPX picks an Enchanter, so now you get Meteor Nami for free on this R5. This is right up Leave's alleyway into a comp that will buy him enough space even if it is a Victor in the mid lane.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't really disagree with it, especially because you do want somewhere to play early, and this kind of negates a lot of the misfortune prio on the other side, because it's just a little difficult for MF to be as aggressive in that matchup with how punishable it could potentially be, but we're going to see what Care wants to opt into. I did not expect something aggressive like the Aurora. I thought it was going to be something that could play a little bit more off of the Nefiri, but what we're seeing here is just a lot of damage coming in. It's going to be Bullet Time, Nefiri diving backline, Aurora diving backline, and you know, they're just going to hope that they can out-pressure NIP on the other side, but NIP have so much setup, and they do have a couple of frontline tanks, so definitely going to be interesting.
Do they need... Wow, okay. So engage support is that big of a priority for ppgod that we get the Lucian Leona pairing. The first one of the LPL year, I'll tell you that. This is not who you put next to Lucian. This is not, and ppgod has played the Enchanter next to Lucian already. He's played the Nami before. He's played the Melio before. This is an intriguing R5.
Yeah, this is an interesting pick, but I'm going to be honest, I've been a bit of a proponent that you don't really need enchanters to play with Lucian nearly as much as you have on previous patches. I think that some of those interactions are just a tad bit different than maybe they had been previously. Not that you can't play them, I still think that they are very good, but what I think this is clear to me to show is like, hey, we're not playing Lucian because we want to dominate 2v2 and really take over there. We're playing Lucian because Leave is really good at Lucian, and we've set up Wukong, and we've set up Victor, and we think that Lucian can carry us in the back half of the game. We're not picking him because, you know, he's going to dominate early. We think he actually can be a late game carry. And that's a really interesting, you know, kind of shout for Ninjas in Pyjamas. We'll see if it pays off for him.
The last time, well, actually, I got completely baited by Weibo's performance. I'm now just realizing that Weibo really had a rough week. They got swept by NIP and then lost to TT. That was the last time that Ninjas in Pyjamas came away with a sweep. Before that, you'd have to go a full month back in LPL action, and that was when Solo Kill came in. So can we continue to see this cannonball form as NIP look to fire their way up the group ascent standing, separate themselves from Thunder Talk? Can they find their third sweep of the Rumble stage? They've got a very NIPS comp to do it, but FPX are a hungry team that have beaten much bigger foes than NIP. It all is about who shows up on the Rift now as we sing in the Jayos. A bit louder than last time. I like to hear it. I like to hear it.
Yeah, you'd love to see the support.
There we go. Hey, we got some. They got the Solo Kill banners out already. These fans work fast. They work fast, and I love it.
Yeah, I think Solo Kill is going to be a big part of this game. Again, I know Sion doesn't feel like a champion that, you know, is super strong in terms of carrying games, but man, has Solo Kill put in some unbelievable performances on this champ so far. He's been able to carry games on Sion. He's got a couple of player of the games on that champion already, and we're going to see if he's going to get another chance here, but really what I'm going to be looking for, again, Leave's going to be pretty big this game, and they're going to start now.
All right.
Wait, Ignite popped?
2-2 comes across. Remember, FPX were already indexing towards the spot side. Care is close by. Root lands on the Leave, and he has to pop the barrier. 2 AD carries that really like their skirmishing early on, but it's FPX that come away a bit stronger, especially with that barrier down. That should really lock in level 2 for them. ppgod and Leave have to commend respect right now.
Yeah, you definitely got to be careful here if you're Leave. One major mistake, and I think a big advantage of Lucian as a champion is kind of gone there. That's not to say that, you know, this game is unsalvageable, because I do think there's a lot of setup for Lucian in the mid game here, but definitely not an ideal trade that they ended up wanting to take early on. We'll see if Jwei wants to play it aggressively. Looks like he does want to at least look for it, but ppgod kind of dissuading. Some over-eagerness here. We'll see who it's level 2 first.
I just think they're too far up. Wow, they get to level 2 though. Barely beat out the race, the Dredge Line and the Zenith Blade both whiff. So a bottom lane that was brewing with tension. It's going to settle down by this point. Shadow, though, with those aggressive wards in the early game, is going to force a Vert jungle, but Aki's swinging over here. He's going to have no idea, though, that his blue buff is feast to the pack.
Well, he's going to know. Yeah, he's going to place the ward
I thought he was going to go straight
down.
towards his wolves. Yeah, so he sees it. Now in a 2v2, Jwei and ppgod are here. Smite battle. Aki wins it. Zenith played through. Jwei does interrupt it with a good dredge line. But Doinb's first to swing over. Flashes galore coming down. Jwei, health bar depleting rapidly. First kill over to NIP. They've got the man advantage, and now they're looking to chase down further. Assume gonna have to cleanse this stun. Likely flash himself back to safety. Leave going after. Not in auto attack range. The death ray falls short as well. But still, a win for NIP, just like they had all game one.
Big win there for Ninjas in Pyjamas. They execute a really smart counter engage, I guess, if you want to call it that. Really overeager there from Shadow. I'm shocked that he wanted to go and make that play, understanding that Aki was going to be pathing to the blue buff. Maybe he thought he was going to be able to burst it before Wolves got there, or, Aki was going to go to Wolves first, but Aki does go to the blue buff and immediately initiates this fight with Shadow, and not only is he able to get the smite down, but from this point onwards, this fight becomes very difficult for FPX to win. They just don't have the pressure. The moment Doinb gets here, it's just over. Unfortunately, first blood does go to ppgod, which not the most ideal of candidates, and the other unfortunate thing here is Leaf's flash at the end of this fight. He really wants to get that final auto off, but just can't do it to be able to pick up the kill onto the Misfortune. But still, overall, a good win and pressuring that tempo you picked for the bot side of the map.
While you don't get the kill as Doinb, the assist does help towards those upgrades that you're always looking for on the Victor as well. So, puts Doinb in a pretty good spot. Allows for that bottom lane to settle down a lot as well. The summer advantage kind of swinging back over. ppgod looking for more plays. Zenith play lands, but wasn't expecting Care to juke up, so won't be able to land the stun chain after.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note how many flashes were burned there if you want to go for some more aggressive plays. Dragon's going to be spawning in about 20 seconds.
My guy's leashing wolves.
I know, beast mode. I think ppgod is out on the map for a reason. I'll just say that. I think that there is a clear directive from Ninjas in Pyjamas like, hey, Care has no flash. Shadow has no flash. We're going to try and take advantage of this in every way that we possibly can. The Leona, pathing up now to help out Leaf, who was already rotated up to the top side, but it's really going to be about who wants to take that next big skirmish or whether or not we're going to wait for the next big objectives to spawn.
I do like this rotation, though. We kind of talked about it when we saw the top lane matchup of Yorick Sion and ALTT, but being the first to force the swaps always feels a lot nicer for the team with Sion. You can constantly put him in the 1v2. He finds a lot more success with that. Will Sheer on this Yorick that you labeled aptly as a bailout champion. That timer to bail out the Yorick gets longer and longer every time he has to go into a 2v1 versus this Leona Lucian that can really kill him off if he doesn't respect them.
Yeah, I mean, the Yorick's got to play much safer in the early game, and this is the benefit of Sion. Right, where you can just put him wherever you want. Like, whatever you need him to do, he's going to be able to get it done. Solo kill's going to be in a pretty decent spot no matter what. We do see a small lead for Sheer in terms of the CS, but Sion not worried about going down too much. We see some pings now coming down onto Dragon from Ninjas in Pyjamas. They potentially could want to contest this. They do have the pressure on the bot side, but FPX is here. Shadow might look for it anyways, but it's just going to get vision for now.
Yeah, he sees Doinb on the mid wave, and they don't know where Aki is currently at, so they'll slow their roll in that Dragon play. The longer this first Drake stands up, though, gives more value to the Grubs, because the trade was always, take an early Drake to give up Grubs. Oh, we'll play for the later fights. But every second this Drake stays up, Grubs get more value.
Exactly, and especially with level 6s being hit by a majority of the champions in the game, I can't imagine that Aki and Shadow are too far off of that, as we can see with the XP bar. Shadow actually a little bit further behind, but Aki is level 6, so Shadow definitely going to need to start putting his foot on the gas. We've got some objectives spawning in about a minute, but pressure back as both bot laners have returned to the bot lane itself. That signals to me that, again, Dragon is actually a bit of a priority for both of these teams. We kind of saw that with the vision control and the pings as well, but interesting to see that, teams are prioritizing not only Drakes, but doing it even later in the game, as we see Negage.
Oh, Assume does have both of the summoners up once more. Ignite
Aki
down.
6.
Aki, though, with the Cyclone, dashes in, finds the kill. You called it out so well, Kman. That small window of an XP lead proves bountiful once more. 2 kills to 0 for NIP.
exactly what you want to see from Aki. Shadow is just way too far behind in terms of tempo right now. He spent a lot of his early game trying to salvage plays for others, and especially after losing that blue buff smite, it just really put him behind really heavily in his clear. That invade that he went for really costing him because he's not level 6. He can't really contribute in any of these fights. Not only is that a kill bot lane, it's Dragon for free, and it's really whatever NIP want from this point onwards on the map. They should be able to put their pressure wherever they need it to be and start stacking these dragons and maybe even playing for grubs as well.
For NIP and this like turnaround that we're starting to get excited about. We talked about solo kill, the aspect he adds, the space he's now buying Leave and Doinb, but Aki, this has been a masterful early game window from a guy who was making a lot of mistakes for NIP and even was making mistakes in game 1. But right now, he's locked into a different level. With ppgod roaming so well on the map, it feels like FPX are suffocated looking for any play.
6. Yeah, Leave is so close to level 6 to be able to hit that. And that would be huge for him, but the smite's coming in. Aki's made his way. It might just be a 2-for-1 trade. I don't imagine FPX want to fight this.
Have smite advantage if they get it low enough. Between worlds though from Care. Dashing comes across from Shadow. Good flash from Aki to create space. The bullet time a little bit too short, but FPX still will capitalize by locking in grubs for a Yorick comp. Gotta feel good about that.
Oh, you're super happy to be able to grab the 3 grubs there. Like I said, Leave basically 1 or 2 minions away from hitting level 6. That would have been a gigantic breakpoint in that fight. As you can see, he takes 1 minion and immediately hits it. That's a big difference maker there because the bullet time was available for Awesome on the other side. And I think also notably, Doinb had teleport available and did not want to commit it for that fight. So they didn't really want to pressure too much for Ninjas in Pyjamas. And they're happy to give over those 3 grubs at the very least without sacrificing too much on the map. But it's the teleport now coming into the bot lane. That's where Doinb wants to put his pressure. Care could be waiting though.
Doinb is just playing the scale game, and that is an important little wrinkle to this game too, right? Is that you're looking at a Victor that is going to become so much more powerful than Care's Aurora can really do, and it's already starting to show its effect. We talked about solo kill Scion that just scales infinitely thanks to his passive. Even Leave on a short-range Lucian with a ton of items. Lucian is such a scary threat, so we got to make sure to really point out that FPX have been slow in the early game. This mid-game is super pivotal because they cannot afford for this one to go 30 minutes plus.
Absolutely not. You have to keep the pressure up. And NIP are actually going to be the ones that are pushing it right now on the bot side, getting a couple plates for themselves. But the collapse coming in, it's properly spotted out by Ninjas in Pyjamas. ppgod doing a good job to scout that out. And they're going to be able to just get a bit of resources down in the bot lane, really for just the Victor ultimate traded out there, which is kind of the trade you want to make anyways. We see a lot of these Victors drop that Chaos Storm immediately in lane to just, you know, pressure out the enemy mid laner and do what they can. Aki's still here, though. Care.
He's got the Trickster, too, so Cyclone's going to come out instantly. Care drops into the invis. They guess the wrong way Care's going, so he's got a bit of leeway to make the run. ppgod going to burn his flash, but Care is still on the wrong side of the rift. There are very few exit doors out. ppgod's got a beat on his route. He's going to use the Between Worlds to create more of a dash, but the Culling comes across. One hits its mark, and that gets Leave the kill and feats the warfare to NIP.
Yeah, it was a good attempt, a valiant attempt from Care to try to get a potential execute there, but the Culling does end up landing. The kill goes over to Leave, which I would honestly argue is optimal for Ninjas in Pyjamas here, but Jwei forcing Doinb's flash here.
Even overstay. In the mark of both of these teams so far through about a game and change.
I think you could say that again. This has definitely been one of those series where both teams are, we'll say, looking for plays, being active on the map, I think is the kind way to put it. But definitely interesting to see that Victor lose flash early. That's a very exploitable summoner to have down. But once again, by the way, for the second game in a row, this is Doinb looking at about a 40 CS lead early, about 12 minutes into the game, and it's just, you got to give him so much credit. I know we gave him a lot of praise for game number 1, but he deserves a lot for being able to consistently generate these gold leads for himself, and then, you know, Ninjas in Pyjamas do a great job to translate that to the rest of the map.
And again, talking about the outlook for NIP this season, as much as we gave, you know, scrutiny towards Shanji at points and Aki's decision-making, this team lives and dies by Doinb. So if he's not on the pinnacle of his game, they were bound to struggle nonetheless. So seeing this now is knowing the season they've had so far, really might start breeding hope for a lot of those NIP fans that have been down in the dumps all Rumble stage long.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly finding a lot more form now. Doinb has always been a very good laner, but I feel like it's been especially pronounced over the past couple of weeks, realizing that maybe he's got a bit more of a responsibility on this team than he expected going into the year, but still a lot to like for the rest of the team. And now with Dragon spawning, Doinb having that pressure down on the bot side, Aki making his way down. See if this wants to be a contest from FPX, or if this is just going to be that second Drake going over to NIP.
I worry about giving this Drake stacking away. Again, this is the NIP comp, this comfortable scaling, playing for those later fights. Jwei knows it. They're going to teleport in Sheer as well. Get a ton of damage down on the ppgod. Re-engage with the Solar Flare, drops all the damage onto Jwei. They do get the Dragon. Cycle comes in from Aki, but he is alone this far forward. They don't get their top laner in until a bit late, but Aki's still alive and thriving. The bullet time on the back end, though, cuts out his escape route. Assume on the front side with Doinb and Leaf throwing out a ton of damage. Has to burn the flash. Leaf follows. Drench life for Jwei, though. Let's assume crawl on out, but it's a marginal win. 3 kills to 1 and a Dragon. It's all up, Ninjas in Pyjamas.
That fight was expertly played by Aki. I want to give him a huge shout out because you're right. It looked like he overextended, but he hits a 3-man Cyclone early on in that fight that we're going to be able to see completely disrupts the entirety of FPX and is able to flash over the wall back to safety. Only has to go down with the influx of the bullet time resource being used to take him down, which means it's not there for a lot of the rest of that fight. I want to give a lot of credit to Leave as well, who's just playing so aggressive on this Lucian. He's clearly comfortable on the champion, but we're going to get another really good angle of this. The engage goes in onto ppgod, who gets bursted down early. He feels the need to just try and lock down whoever he can. Once Dragon's gone, though, look at this engage coming in from Aki. He's able to lock up a lot of the damage dealers and a brilliant flash over the wall to keep himself safe. And again, that bullet time has to be used to, secure that kill onto the Wukong, but that leaves Misfortune so vulnerable, and Jwei has to give his life to keep his AD carry safe. It's just really nice setup coming in from Ninjas in Pyjamas, and it's gold going on the exact right members here with Leave picking up yet another kill here.
Yeah, he's about to crest over that 2-item IE. Dangerous, dangerous spot. And again, for FPX, this is a team that has been so successful with playing aggressively through Shadow. The confidence they have to take fights. It's what's gotten them such premier wins in the Rumble stage, right? Like knocking down AL not that long ago. Right now, they are just kind of outmatched in fight angles, neutral priority. This is a whole different series than what we were expecting, and we'll see if this next fight can kind of level us back to a neutral spot as ppgod finds a Dream Engage onto Assume and burns the cleanse. This bullet time, though, hits its mark onto Leave. He's got Shadow in his face, but luckily ppgod and Doinb blow through Care and Assume. The Nefiri whimpering away as NIP run another fight.
It's the improper assumption that because the kills have gone on to Leave, that if they can take Leave out of the fight, then NIP are going to have more trouble, and now you're ignoring Doinb. You're ignoring what Aki and Solo Kill can do on the front line. It's awesome stuff from NIP. You're just in such a dominant position here that even though you've invested so many resources into making sure that specific lanes are strong, you're now looking at a team advantage that you can utilize. So if you see FPX index really heavily into taking down one member, there's just no way to be able to get the rest. It's going to be mid lane tier 1 gone. It's going to be Rift Herald gone in favor of NIP, and this gold lead continues to balloon at this point.
Alarm bells are ringing across the FPX board right now. Let's take a look at another great engage from ppgod to kick things off.
Yeah, I mean, the engage from ppgod's great. The counter engage from Jwei is pretty solid as well to lock up Leave, but Care can't actually burst him down, and so he stays alive. And, Care has to expunge so many resources in order to even get in that position that he's easily caught in the back half of that fight. And, from that point onwards, it's just so difficult for FPX to really have the damage to break through. And now FPX trying a last-ditch effort on Doinb.
Yeah, he doesn't have a stasis. He does have flash. He's able to get back towards his teammates. Shadow's off towards the flank angle. Doinb's going to fall, but how much can they get with Aki? They trade Assume. That's 4 members to 3, though. Is there anything NIP can get off of that overload? Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it's a nice play by FPX, understanding that there's nothing on the map right now. There's no real objective to take. That means that it's going to be a lot easier, but Here is the real concern, that you're looking at Shadow and you're looking at Leave and you see Neferi potentially behind a Lucian. That Lucian's a full level up. Yeah, that Lucian is way too strong for that Neferi to deal with right now, and that's where things start to become a little murky. But again, a 1-for-1 trade is certainly not bad for FPX at this point. It's really just about... Yeah, that's true, yes. That's really just about where they want to put the resources now, I think, is really what I'm looking at for NIP. We see Dragon spawning in 20 seconds, and you know, we'll see if they want to continue to stack that. It is going to be Cloud Soul this game, which is very helpful for both the Wukong, the Lucian, even really the Leona and the Victor as well, to be able to kite out some of these fights. So, you know, I'm interested to see if they want to put a ton of priority there, and it looks like that's going to be the case.
What about the Scion, though? Okay, you know what? Never mind. I see damage. I just want to give a shout out to the observers for deciding after all this action, the last 10 minutes, that solo kill's not been a part of. They're showing him, but they're not showing him because NIP are setting up plays like this. Jwei gets locked down by ppgod, and the Coling melts through his health bar. Aki flying after both Karen and Asuma. Guess what? They don't even feel confident enough to fight this Wukong. The jungle not even safe for FPX to traverse right now.
There's just nothing left on the map for FPX to be able to fight over. It's so aggressively played by Leave, and you look and you're like, okay, maybe Bullet Time can pull something back. It's a small close quarters fight. Sheer, is he gonna be able to solo kill here? Have to burn the Scion ultimate to get himself out of there. Almost a really funny turn of events, but worth noting, the bullet time in that fight, in a small close quarters choke point, hits no one. 0 damage, like absolutely nothing, and it's just it's a disaster. Solo kill.
Oh,
now gonna have to burn his flash after teleporting back.
You know what? That's do we call that a mental warfare W?
I mean, at this point, you take what you can get if you're FPX.
Yeah,
I mean, even the Scion's like a level up or an item up right now onto the Yorick, and so you're doing what you can to put yourself in that position. But things go from bad to worse for FPX just throughout the course of that fight. And I think the big problem is that their damage is just completely offline. Shadow's not been able to really get anything over the course of this game, and you called it correctly in that fight, Slayer. When you have an entire team running away from Wukong, you know something's going a little bit wrong.
Yeah, and again, I want to give credit to this NIP draft because Lucian is a champion that can really look weird in a lot of comps, but they're just drafted, even with the Victor and the Gravity Well, like they buy enough space and they have guys flying in with this Lucian that it just works. And it's cool to see NIP taking pieces from those sparing wins that they found. Not series wins, game wins, when they were really struggling with the Shanji team, and then incorporating them into this new, reinvigorated squad in this Leave Lucian. And it's looking, from a champion that barely got them over the hump of a 45-minute or like 55-minute banger to piloting a dominating carry performance. As NIP are running away with this game at 21 minutes. They get an uncontested Otacon. It's just all up NIP stocks, baby.
I mean, what do you even say about that? Otacon, especially the new one with the new passive with the burst damage on takedown, the splash damage on takedown. It's ridiculously strong, and even that is completely free. There's no contest on the map. Herald is gonna get dropped here. Oh no. Sheer gets solo killed by solo kill. That's a disaster. But look at NIP. They're just pushing wherever they want to push, and FPX are funneled into just having to run away from Raptors.
Herald is going to get interrupted by that wave. Leave, the crash down is not worth your life, but the Coling nearly fully deletes Assume's health bar. It does cost Leave his life, and they get Shadow up near towards Sheer. So we get some really weird fighting lines. Here comes solo kill. Does not hit Shadow. That's also Cyclone down out of Aki. So a bit of the worries for NIP showing Leave overextending himself, trying to do everything on his own. Does cost him the shutdown. Like you called out, Kman. Where NIP are at right now, shutting down only one threat is not enough.
Yeah, there's just too big of a gold lead elsewhere on the map. It is a nice pickup. It's some gold in the pocket of FPX, but they don't need, 1 or 2 fights. They specifically need to start getting gold onto Shadow. We can see this play. Leaf just played super aggressive, hoping he can burst down the Misfortune before anything else really happens here. He does get stunned up and ends up going down, but he does trade 1 for 1 even in that incredibly greedy exchange. And so you know, you can't be too upset with how things end up going, but the gold lead, as you can see individually across the board, really the only way that FPX are staying in this is the potential Yorick split push win condition, but even that is becoming a bit more difficult with solo kill, you know, building full armor on the other side. So, you know, it's just, it's looking difficult, as we can see from the gold graph.
Yeah, it's such a smart path, knowing that the Aurora is probably the one hurting the most. So you're just so impossible to deal with for Nefiri, Yorick, and MF. Another point to solo kill and the rest of NIP. We're starting to see some major items come through, especially for this Doinb Victor. You called out how massive a gold lead he has, 2,500 gold alone. He's got himself the Stasis out of the Zanyas, the Liamdries, and the Roa done. Exodia Doinb Victor is not far away.
Yeah, we are looking at some team fights that could potentially go very, very poorly for FPX if they want to try and take a front-to-back 5v5. That being said, it's going to have to be forced at some point. Ninjas in Pyjamas have no reason not to group up and create a lot of these exchanges. We talk about simplifying the process is the term I use a lot in terms of drafts, and just making sure that your win condition is never overly difficult to execute on. Well, you know, Wukong, Leona engage with Victor, Lucian follow-up, not particularly difficult to execute on if you can get those fights. That's what NIP are looking for. Jwei is going to be the first target.
Yep, flashes away from the solar flare. ppgod taking an aggressive route, trying to get to Care, but Assume can't do enough damage. Another flash claimed by ppgod, almost alone. Flashes galore just being dropped as Assume tries to get away from Aki, but one Cyclone's enough. Care trying to trade back, but he just can't find any avenue in. NIP are an impenetrable wall right now in these fights. 3-0 once more.
I mean, this is the problem. There's just no fight to take on the map. There's nothing that you can do. Aki, by himself, once again, behind enemy lines, 3v1, and he gets a solo kill and just gets to dash out. He's not even remotely concerned. He's having a phenomenal game right now. I don't even think we're giving him enough credit for just how well he's played, but Leave, you know, with those cullings and constantly dashing forward on this Lucian, you can see the aggressiveness from Doinb, ppgod, you know, everybody is just playing with so much confidence right now, and it means that this entire map is Ninjas in Pyjamas to lose.
What a wake-up call for NIP as Group Ascend was dwindling down. We talked about the heroics of squads like WE, FPX, teams that we thought would be below NIP. NIP would be, you know, contesting against the Weibos, the IGs from Split 1. How apt would it be for this Rumble stage? Hey man, if we get back to that reality of NIP, knowing how the standings look right now.
Man, if we get back to that, all of a sudden things become very interesting for playoff qualification. Remember, only top 8 teams qualify for playoffs. It's not just, oh, you're in Group Ascend, you've got the chance. You've got to earn it. And if Ninjas in Pyjamas are going to start stepping up, like, you know, if we're talking about what the future could hold, this could potentially be like a best-of-5 preview as Shadow.
All right,
potentially caught Aki still here.
Pretty slippery. Gets away from full Leona lockdown, pulling out of Leave as well. FPX really need to capitalize on these windows where they get ults out for very little.
Is solo kill just killing Sheer?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, this is Scion scale. I mean, the guy eats shields for breakfast. He slaps down minions, and the namesake comes across. Sheer's down. Re-engage comes across from FPX, but look at Doinb's damage. The Arcane Storm swallowing all of FPX whole.
Just nothing to find in the jungle. If you are looking for one of NIP to be too far forward, maybe you can get Aki in a situation like that, but you're going to have to pay the price of losing almost your entire team. We saw Sheer get solo killed by solo kill down on the bot side. Shadow now he's going to try to clear the wave. Understands maybe that he can't kill solo kill. He's going to try, but I don't even know if he can. I think this is just wasting time for the Nefiri as the NIP team just sieges down the base.
Damage is bouncing off this guy. This is full desperation from Shadow.
Teleport from Doinb.
Oh my God! They don't even want to let solo kill die. They don't care about the push. This is personal right now for NIP. Oh, that's just a BM teleport I've ever seen one, but they're that far ahead. Why not?
Yeah, crazy stuff coming in from Ninjas in Pyjamas. Just nothing to say, right? Like. It's this
I
game
feel
has
bad
been...
for you, Kman. This analysis, there's not much left anymore. This is
Well, the
this one feels
analysis that I
polished.
can give that I think is a little bit interesting. We talked about some potential, like, matchups as we see the solo kill here for solo kill. The interesting thing, we could be seeing these two teams play a best of 5 to see who gets into playoffs. Like, that's where these standings are at right now. If this is a preview of that, NIP is going to be in a really good spot. Just look at this. There's no damage onto the Scion. We saw how long it took a Neferi to try and take down this champion. You think that,
Bye-bye.
Oh my god.
2v1. You thought the 1v1 was bad. Let me bring in a 3-item Wukong. What does that do for me?
Yeah. Somehow, some way that didn't make it easier for the York to be able to win it. I don't know who could have predicted that, but
No way.
it just goes from bad to worse, man. Like, it's not good for FPX, and now they're just trying to salvage their base as much as they can, but this could be the final push coming in from Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Yeah, they're so confident. They're pushing into the base, diving near Nexus turrets. Baron is up. They can just take that. They go through the motions, but instead, NIP want to go for the throw. Leave is getting led astray here, trying to chase down Shadow.
Oh.
And he's not going to get him. Shadow buys a lot of time. ppgod's fairly low, so he'll just take the inhibitor and back out, and maybe NIP will just go through the motions and look for Baron instead of the gut punch.
I was going to praise Leave for that fight because Neferi had a pretty good flank angle, and the Lucian just fully 1v1'd Neferi and just, took her out of the fight. But a little bit of an overextension, we'll just say, from Leave ends up making it more difficult to siege down the actual turrets that matter. But at the end of the day, things are still in a great spot for NIP. They're going to set up around this Baron. This is uncontestable for FPX. I don't even think they can step up. This is going to be gone by the time they get there.
All right, we'll see. Shadow's close by. So they'll at least get a bead on this Baron pretty early on. Although solo kill just kind of zones all of FPX on his own. All right, so he knocked back 3 guys with the blast cone. Baron's gone. FPX is late, and now they got to run away because one solar flare will see Shadow go down. Great use of the untargetable. Gets away though from the Zenith Blade. Again, small wins for FPX. Not dying is nice, but in this game state, they need a miracle, a Hail Mary, to have a chance at keeping the sweep at bay.
Yeah, a miracle would probably be an undersell of what it would take as we see them starting to siege down and solo kill diving in.
40k HP Scion jumps right into your team. What do? You crumble. Cyclone not even used on Assume. He gets a 4-man knockup 2 times over for Aki. There it is. Sign it, ship it, seal it, whatever way you want to do it. Doinb and NIP might just be back as they sweep out their second opponent in 3 matches.
Unbelievable stuff here from Ninjas in Pyjamas as they claim the Nexus at the end. 2-0, I don't even think begins to describe what just happened in that game number 2. That felt like a 3-0 in terms of how that final game went. And you just have to give so much credit for NIP. It would be really easy for this team to get mental boomed at some point throughout this split and just not be able to keep up their pressure. This is not a mental boomed team. We saw this last year as well with Ninjas in Pyjamas. Sometimes they peak at the exact right moment, and going into playoffs, this is not a team you can overlook.
Yeah, I mean, last split, they arguably peaked in the regular season and then bowed out of playoffs. If we reverse it, this is going to be a fun playoff. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, though, let's really break down the success of this game and this series. Because for this game, Kman, what really drives my hype for NIP is that the guy who was kind of throwing game 1 was the hero from the start in game 2, and it was Aki.
Aki had a tremendous game here in game number 2 on the Wukong. You can argue that some of the plays he went for were overextensions, that maybe he was a bit too greedy. I would argue that if you're capable of 1v3ing, then you should do it. And you should go for it. And, he was very happy to do so. I think we're going to see some replays coming through eventually here, but that first big dragon fight where he's able to get 2 different 3-man cyclones throughout the course of that fight and then flash over the wall to safety, force the bullet time to be burned to use to kill him, and then Leave can just take over the rest. That completely set the tone of the entire game, not to mention all of the subsequent engages that he was going through. I mean, the backline of FPX had no shot in this game, and a lot of that was due to Aki.
Yeah, and on the flip side for FPX, I'll put it the nice way, lot to learn from this series. Now, in a lot of aspects, I think there were fair critiques to this game 2 draft. I think they really could have run away with game one after their Baron. A lot to learn from here, Kman, for a team that is still young and hungry and, maybe overperformed they definitely have overperformed their marker for this team going into Group Ascent at the start.
Yeah, I think it's just not understanding exactly what you can and can't get away with. The one play that stands out to me that really threw everything off was Shadow's Invade in the early game on the Neferi onto the blue buff. From that point on, it's so much harder. He's a full level down, as we saw in that first big fight where Aki's able to utilize the Cyclone on the Wukong to be able to create some action bot side, transition that into Dragon. Neferi can't answer. No ultimate available, and that just makes that fight unwinnable, and it was just really difficult. When you lose tempo like that, it's hard to get yourself back into the game, but I think even more so than that, I was just worried a little bit about these players being a little bit too inactive on the map. I don't think Care had a particularly great day in the mid lane, even if you want to look at the score lines, which weren't terrible. I mean, he's regularly down 40, 45 CS against Doinb in these pretty neutral matchups. I mean, maybe not so much Victor into Aurora. You would more so expect the Victor to win that, but it's just... You got to get a better performance coming in from some key members in the middle of the map, and, we've seen better from them. I think you just have to hope today was now.
Exactly. And when I say, FPX at this point, 6-9 have overperformed expectations, I don't mean that as a slight at them. I'm saying by this point, where they're at, given the overall LPL sentiment of where they'd be in Group Ascend, is treating a series like this as a really big learning spot, because regardless how the rest of this split plays out, unless you really collapse, you're going to be in a spot to play, like you mentioned, likely an NIP or a Thunder Talk. So a series loss like this is such a great opportunity to learn, especially when we point out this was pretty mistake-riddled. So if this comes as a playoff matchup or a play-in matchup, and you polish some of these things out, this is a whole different matchup.
Yeah, you have to hope so for FPX's sake, but I do think they absolutely have it in them, right? Like, we know this team's fine. Yeah. We know that they have a lot going for them, and I think the unfortunate thing is what we're seeing pretty regularly right now in the LPL is a lot of priority on Yorick because it found some success over previous weeks, and man, Yorick just didn't do anything in this game. Like, Sheer was a complete non-factor, and that's one of the best players on FPX that's just not really able to contribute in a major way in this game, and you got to feel a certain way about that, as we see this is the play with Aki that you do give a lot of credit towards, and Leave's able to wait it out and burst down the misfortune. But I agree. I think it's all just execution. If you don't make that mistake, if Shadow doesn't invade early, how does this early game end up looking? Because you are the team that probably ends up scaling, I think, a little bit better in this game. You certainly have more mid-game pressure, maybe not entirely. Like, the front to back is easy, but Yorick, Neferi, Aurora, it's so much damage if you can just get to that break point. But you never get that chance. Same thing for game number one. You have that fight in the bot lane where you have a lead, you have Baron, and you just can't keep a hold of it. It's these tiny things that catch them. If they can clean that up, I think they're probably going to be just fine.
But the day belongs to Ninjas in Pyjamas as we roll through these last-ending fights that are just complete decimation, one-sided, whatever way you want to put it here for NIP. And I'll bring the same question you were definitely expecting here, Kman, for me. Player of the game. Where is your head at? Because I think, Aki's up there. Leave had his moments. What are we thinking? I'll stop my ramblings.
To me, it's the monkey, no question. Aki was player of the game here. I think the creation tools that he had in the jungle and just the ability to dominate the back end of every single one of these fights, regardless of if he got credit for it in the KDA or not, was absolutely ginormous. Not to mention a couple of really clutch smites throughout this game as well, a 50-50 that he ended up grabbing. I think Aki just had a really fantastic game. I wouldn't blame anybody for giving it to Leave. The dude was dashing forward every single fight and trying to pump out as much damage as possible. Even Doinb, he was up, 50 CS in the back half of this game. Solo kill got a solo kill. Like, everybody for NIP played well, but to me, it was the jungler that stood out, which is so important for Ninjas in Pyjamas.
I'm with you. I hope Aki gets it. I could see a world where it's Doinb, which would be funny because all of the, I don't want to say, I guess kind of like box score watchers is a good way to translate it, but would just see a day where it's 2 Tarzan MVPs and 2 Doinb MVPs, and they'd be like, oh yeah, just as I expected, right? Like, name value. Yeah. Of course Tarzan and Doinb carry these teams to 2-0 wins. Let's see if the voting is aligned the same way. Nope. Aki grabs it. So just his second MVP of the entire year of the LPL, and how pivotal of a one could it be here? As it does sound like we might have, if I'm not mistaken, Mickey, we have updated standings So let's take a look at what Group Ascend looks like now after that win. And my eyes immediately drift towards the kind of bottom here, Kman, where, I mean, 7 through 9 is going to get a lot more shakier than we expected.
Yeah, it's so close. Like, Ninjas in Pajamas just have to keep performing, and they can sit somewhere around, 6 and 9. They can be in that 7 spot. Remember, where you don't want to be is like number 9. Like that feels a little bit scary because in terms of matchups, 8 plays 9 and 8 has side select. For how the play-ins are determined. And so if you're Ninjas in Pajamas right now, you're looking at a series against WE, and you're not going to have side select for that. You want to be able to build this up. We talk regularly about how important blue side is, especially for a team like Ninjas in Pajamas, to be able to get that pressure early. You want to make sure that you're in a spot to be able to grab that. And for FPX, getting number 6 or number 7 is the goal and is really what you're looking for. If you end up falling out of those spots, like those are the Group Nirvana spots. That's LGD and that's EDG in terms of who you're playing in these best of 5s to qualify for playoffs. So a result that I think both teams needed, but you got to build upon it. Or at least Ninjas in Pajamas needed it. FPX didn't need it, but you got to build upon this if you're NIP and FPX. You got to be able to bounce back.
So there's a look at Group Ascend as it stands. Awesome to see NIP maybe soaring back, as they do have a good start to their Hell Week. It's an important point to mention here, Kman. This is their second half of the round robin 4-game block. I guess we're also locking in AL the playoffs at the series win. That's cool. Awesome little update. But yeah, so NIP, they have to play BLG, IG, and AL. If they really want to show that they're a team that could be like a dark horse play-in threat or anything, it's going to be this week.
But here's the problem with that is that they can't just win a couple of these. They got to win most of these. And that's where things get a little bit spicier. Obviously, it kind of depends on what happens with teams like Team WE. They're out the rest of this week as well, who have matchups against like Thunder Talk that are, if they win, that's, it makes it harder for NIP. If they lose, things become, more interesting. There are a lot of dominoes to fall, but
WE does have to. They do still have to play AL and top esports for the rest of the round robin, so that is important to also take away. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're totally fine. You gotta keep your A game up. If WE can take down Thunder Talk, and even if they lose those other 2 series, and you're Ninjas in Pajamas, even if you take 2 of Invictus, BLG, and AL, you're looking at even records and maybe not even game scores. So like that's a difficult position to be in. You've definitely dug yourself a hole, but this team has shown today they have the talent to be able to pull themselves out of it. It just might be a little bit too deep in order to do it easily.
The fun part here is as we begin winding down our second round robin. Everybody's eyes are obviously drifting to the top of Group Ascend, expecting all the shakeups for 3, 4, 5, 6. It's fun to come away from today and be like, what does 7, 8, and 9 actually have in store for us? NIP definitely starting those questions with their second sweep in 3 series, this time over FPX. That will do it in quick succession for our day of the LPL. But before we get on out of here, I have a big shout out to give away. Thank you very much to our elite coffee supporters, Aaron Soup, Mong, and Forest Without. Their pledged financial contributions help level up the broadcast and give back to the cast and crew who strive to give you an English LPL product every day, even if every single team gets 18 best of 3s to play for. We've gone through a big chunk of them, and today was a speed run. As much as my tired body is happy that we are out of here in 4 games, my mind is a little bit sad that we only got 4 games of Slayer Kman. Kman, do you have any final thoughts here before we close out the broadcast?
It was an absolute honor to cast with you, Slayer. I had a great time today. We got some really fun games. Game 1 in particular of this series was great, and
True.
Ninjas in Pajamas comeback art starts now.
Here we go. We're calling it. We're stamping it. Look out for NIP. They are on a tear, Kman. It was an absolute pleasure. I know it won't be the last. We won't be back here tomorrow, but the LPL will be as well. Big shout out as well to our awesome producer, Mickey, taking us through tomorrow's matchups. NIP are right back in the driver's seat. They will be taking on BLG, and then JDG IG is your other matchup. Be back here at the same exact time wherever you are in the world. But for now, see you later. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is. We'll see you next time.